So, as you can see, I'm going to talk to you today about falls and the plan for Ward 9. I just want to ask you all a quick question. Does anyone know how many falls a day we have organisational wide? Write it down. You can write it on a piece of paper up there on one of those, that's fine. How many falls a day we have across continuing care, across our division? And how many days do you think we have on Ward 9? Sorry, not a day, from the period January to now to May. Sorry, not a day, it's for the 6-month period. Alright, so my name is Belinda Nash and I'm the Nurse Unit Manager, and I'm going to talk to you about our falls and our plan for Ward 9. So I've defined a fall. As you can see, basically the definition's up there, but it's basically someone going from a higher surface to a lower surface. So there's a little bit of a grey area around people who are on high-low beds, on the low floor mattresses, and the fallout mats, what if they roll out of bed. So we're getting clarification on that because technically that's from higher to lower. So it's still a grey area. Some areas report this and some don't. Currently we are not, is that correct? We don't report on falls roll out of bed? No, okay. All right, so organisationally, 695 falls, so in the 6-month period. So that's an average of 139 per month. The continuing care, 314, and Ward 9 has 30 falls. So from January till now, we've had 30 falls. So that's an average of about 6 a month. So it's a few. And this is just a graph to show you the peaks. And as you can see, there's a peak in December, and that's where we had a repeat faller, but it just gives you an idea of we have ebbs and flows also here. This is instance by time of day. So I've just highlighted again that at 5 o'clock, that's when we have had our most falls, and 10 and 11 o'clock. So what times of the day is that generally? Yeah. So break time seems to be the biggest time when most wards, and our ward in particular, have the R falls. And these are just by severity. So these are ISR2, so falls with harm. And these are ISR 3s, which is our majority of our falls, and then they're the R4s. Alright, so Austin Health, they define an ISR 2 as an incident reported on wristband that's resulted in temporary harm or loss in functioning. So over, I think, December, January, this year we had 5 ISR 2s. So that's a lot. So our incidents involved fractures, and on review, probably 3 of these patients had multiple falls. So in January, the NUMs all got together with the division heads to talk about what are we going to do. They noticed a rise in falls across the campus, not just Ward 9. And so as each ward, what are we going to do about it? So that's why I'm talking to you guys today. How can we manage our falls? So key areas that were identified for each ward to focus on were around rounding, handover, patient engagement. In this area, we felt we could work on handover. So handover is a key component. This is where we hand over a patient's clinical care needs. It's our responsibility of communication from shift to shift. So our focus in our handover is going to be around how do we hand over someone's risk of falling, and how do we prevent them from falling. So that's probably a focus when you're doing your bedside handovers, highlighting those, and also the nurse in charge when they're doing their board handovers. On admission, so how do we assess falls? So currently, what do you do? Yep. So in what time frame do you have to have the risk assessment done by?
8 hours.
Yeah. And so that basically is someone who's had a fall in the past 12 months, someone who requires assistance to mobilise, and someone who can't follow instructions. They're the indicators for someone who's got a high risk. We all know that. Do you all know about the fall stickers?
Yep.
Yep. And you know, was there a no?
Yeah, no.
I'll show you afterwards, so I can go through it with you. But on admission, we put a sticker in their notes which identifies someone as falls risk, high falls risk, and what strategy we'll put in place, but also discussing education that you've given to patients. Our patients down here, as you know, can be memory impaired, so it might be what education you've given to family. And also giving out the safety brochure and explaining it to patients, and again, if they're not strategies, which you all know again. So review. So this is basically the stuff I review when I come and review a risk man. What are these things that you have in place? So yeah, the risk man, I will review an incident. I will look at the strategy you've got in place, and I'll also basically I'm looking to see what can we do from stopping this happening again. Is there anything we can do to prevent this? Falls huddle. So do you all know what a falls huddle is? Yep. So that's completed by the nurse in charge, the NUM or physio. I ensure the nursing care plan's up to date, so that might mean making sure that their frame's at hand or they've got the right shoes on. Risk assessment tools also updated, and the falls entered in Cerner at the time of the incident, and what strategies you've employed, you also can put that in Cerner as well. If you're not sure, I can show you physically at the computer at the bedside later on. So if everything's in place and someone falls risk is high and we've got all our strategies in place, then we can speak to the nurse in charge, so myself or my manager, and talk about a one-on-one special. It's not an impossibility. People think that we can't have specials. We can, but we just need to make sure we've got every other strategy in place before we go to as a one-on-one. And sometimes that might be using our hand, our lovely Michelle, or sometimes the students, that even they can sit and supervise someone. And also, can family assist with prevention? Are they able to come and sit with them? Can they help settle them down so they're not getting up and down? So that's just a falls huddle. So I just did a bit of a mock one so you can see how to fill it in. But the main thing I wanted to highlight is that it includes the incident, follow-up review, strategies implemented, but just making sure we document the education to family or patient. And again, it's dependent on if the patient can recall, then we go to family to educate. So what can you do? So using the hand to assist with supervision. So that might be asking your nurse in charge to redeploy our hand to come over. So Surendra or Michelle to come over and sit with that patient if they become unwell during the shift and become higher risk of falling. Meal breaks, planning them with your team members, so making sure that you're not on break together, which you all know and do. Ensuring your buddy isn't in the shower when you go on your break, because we found that falls can occur because you can't go and answer when you're in the shower with your patient. Rounding, so just making sure everyone knows what rounding is. Yeah. There's probably going to be a change in that term, but everyone, I suppose organisationally, we want you to be aware of back to basics, so rounding, asking your patient, do you have pain? Do you want to go to the loo? Are you hungry or thirsty? Checking in on them every hour, making sure they've got their most usable items nearby, making sure their gate aid's nearby, there's no clutter. That's the kind of thing we want you to do every hour. And I'm also saying, before you go on break, also do your rounding, check in with your patient, say, I'm about to go on my break. But also identifying who they can call for help. So if your patient can retain information saying that, I'm going on break, but my buddy will be around if you call the bell, here's your bell, so they know who to call if they need help, if they need it while you're on break. So the future plan for ward 9 and falls management. So the department heads, division heads sat down with all the NUMs, and I suppose we all set the goal of that we should have 0 falls with harm. So I suppose I want to come back to you guys and ask you, what do you think is feasible? Is it feasible to have no falls here a day? Is that feasible?
A day?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's feasible not to have patients fall?
I think
Do you?
Well, not
in a day.
Realistically?
no.
Yeah. So that was my belief would be the answer. So I suppose it's about coming back to you guys saying what's feasible. I would like for the start, our goal to be reducing falls with harm. I think that's more feasible. If we want to head, I would like to head towards maybe we have a week without falls, but I don't know that we can have no falls, but it's more about the harm. We can't have the fractures. It's how can we reduce that? So it's just about asking you guys what's feasible. And I suppose the other thing is implementing that if someone's had 2 falls, they need to be reviewed within 8 hours by a senior staff member, either the NUM or ANUMs and allied health. We need to re-review that situation and maybe get a third set of eyes. So what are we doing? Can we do something different to help prevent harm and falls? Continuing the high vis room. So it's not feasible. Is it feasible to have someone in that room at all times? No. So yeah, and I want you to be honest with me. That's fine. So again, it's like if it's, I think having a visible room, so that planning, the nurse in charge plans that the patient goes in that room. So if we have someone handed over as a high falls risk that we know will put them in that room, we plan when we're taking our handover from the Austin. But it's like essentially that I don't think it's feasible that someone can stay in the room at all times. Unless they're a designated one-on-one high falls risk person. And also, just so you know about the volunteer project, that we are looking at setting up that, where we'll utilise diversional therapy and an activity program through volunteers. And so hopefully that will mean that these people are kept busy during the day, so they're actually being supervised. And also hopefully they'll sleep at night because they've actually been doing something, so looking at using the outdoor space. Games, etc. So that's a project that will be up and running hopefully in the next couple of months as well, which will be good for us and our patients. So in conclusion, ultimately the plan is to reduce falls with harm on the ward. I can start showing you updates on the top board. Is there any other way you want me to give information? Do you find emails work? Do you find that me presenting to you like this? Being shown the data on the falls, how many falls you've had the time of day, like what is helpful to you guys?
I think visible is
Being visible.
yeah.
So identifying, so going through the top board saying we've had a fall today and this is the strategies, we've reviewed it. Also using the journey board when we do our huddles and promoting this person's a high risk. Does that help? Yep. With the huddles, I just want to promote with the senior staff that are doing handover that we include everyone, so ward clerk, cleaners, medical staff, allied health, that it's everyone's job, everyone's part of the team to help us keep patients safe. It's not just you guys, that it's like social work. If they see someone getting up, they know that they're a high risk, that they can say, hey, sit down, you know, or alert us to come and help them. So it's everyone's job. It's not just nursing staff, it's the whole team. So when we're doing the huddles, and again, it's like the high vis room. I think that ultimately looking at, we've got 9 to 12, but looking at another area being made into a bedroom, so you've got a little bit more room to move with being able to visualise your patients. Because I think we're basically coming down to, we do have alarms, but it's more about hands-on and visibility as well. All right, does anyone have any questions or anything they want to add to this? Any suggestions? Thank you so much for your time. I know you're busy people.